So as I told you, today's concept is very, very important, especially for building up the project. So slowly we will be moving towards some simple project development in core Java, but the concept what we are learning, encapsulation along with access modifier and packages, is one of the most important concept for development perspective. Anyhow, it's a very big topic, so it may take 3, 4 sessions to cover these concepts. But today we will be building up the foundation, okay, followed by a couple of assignments we will be having for this weekend. Let's see, based on the concepts covered, I will be sharing up the assignment in the group. Okay. So with this note, let's get started with uh, the object-oriented concepts or the principles or the characteristics of object-oriented programming. Basically we call them as four major pillars for object-oriented programming: encapsulation, polymorphism, inheritance, and abstraction. So we're going to talk about one by one. Okay, we're going to start with encapsulation. We'll see polymorphism, inheritance, and abstraction. If we talk about JNTU curriculum or JNTU syllabus, I can say mostly 2 to 2.5 units. Okay, I can say almost 3 units. Depends on these concepts. Okay, and even Unit 4 and Unit 5 completely relied on these concepts without having understanding of encapsulation, polymorphism, inheritance. Obviously, you cannot implement any object-oriented program. So, as per the JNTU, if you are good with these four concepts, then easily you can score a very good score in your JNT curriculum as well. Okay. So, but we will be learning this for placements perspective. So we will be going a little more in depth about this encapsulation, polymorphism, inheritance, and abstraction. So remember, these are the four main pillars of object-oriented programming language. If any language follows these four characteristics, the basic four characteristics, they are called as an object-oriented programming language. Other languages like Python, C++, they do follow this principle. So that's why they also called as object-oriented programming language. But coming to Java, let's see like how Java implements these concepts. Okay, getting started with encapsulation. So let's first see what exactly an encapsulation. At least the definitions are very sure for your Viva for your Java lab as per the JNTU. So first thing is we need to be very clear with the definitions and the examples. Okay, and let's see. So as per the English dictionary, the English dictionary defines encapsulation means to encapsulate, meaning to enclose something or as it is in capsule. So if you look at the capsule, okay, encapsulation is like a capsule in medicine. It wraps the drug data, okay, inside a protective cover, and only the controlled release is allowed. If you look at this capsule here, okay, if you look at the capsule, basically it contains the medicine, right? It wraps the medicine inside the capsule. So I have one question for you all. What is important here, guys? The capsule is important or the medicine is important? Meaning, if I throw the medicine and take consume the capsule, will it cure my disease? Or if I just take the medicine inside the capsule, then throw away the capsule, will it work? So what works, what not? So what do you think? What exactly this capsule is doing? Anyone? What is important here? The capsule or the medicine? Okay, Srikar says medicine. Medicine works even if the capsule is not there. Thank you, Shravani. Thank you, Srikar. Do you all agree with Srikar? Yeah, both are important. Okay, fine. But my question was like maybe both are important, but my question was like, will it work if I just consume medicine by throw away the capsule? Will it work? Yes, right. There are a couple of reasons we need to have this capsule. The main reason we will be providing this medicine inside the capsule because to protect the medicine from the outside effect. Maybe the bacteria or the medicines may be so sensitive that it gets affected by the outside environment. To avoid the effect from the outside, we basically enclose this in a capsule. Correct? We enclose this in a capsule. In a similar way, like if you wanted to, like if you purchase a chocolate, it comes with a wrapper, right? So what is important there, wrapper or a chocolate? Obviously chocolate. So why the chocolates gets wrapped with a wrapper? Why chocolates basically wrap with a wrapper there? So that it will be protected from outside environment. Okay, maybe the bacteria. Yeah, basically it talks about the protection. So in Java, encapsulation means the process of wrapping the data, which is nothing but your variables, the class variables, and methods, okay, which is nothing but functions, together in a single unit called class to protect access from the others. To protect the access from the others is called encapsulation. Is called encapsulation. So this is the definition for an encapsulation. So encapsulation in Java is a process of wrapping the data and the methods together in a single unit. Okay, together in a single unit to protect the access from the outsiders, to protect the access from the others is called encapsulation. Okay, now I wanted to get back to our example, what we have implemented last time, and see are we following encapsulation or not? Are we wrapping our data and methods together in a single unit? And is my data protected from the others or not? Let us see. Okay, let us see here. But before that, let's see, like this is also called as data hiding because it restricts direct access to an object component, which means you can prevent outside parties from tampering with the internal state of an object. Okay, so let's get back to our program and let's try to see, are we encapsulating the things here properly or not? Or I mean, are we following the first principle of object-oriented programming, encapsulation, and are we protect our data is safe, our data is protected or not? So what we did is we created a class called bank, and inside that bank class, I created fields like name of type string, account number of type long, and balance of type double. Okay, so these three fields I created. Then I also created three methods, which is printing the balance. Okay, printing the balance, depositing the amount. I write the logic for depositing the amount. And also I have implemented the withdraw method, where I check to maintain the minimum balance as 500. To check the minimum balance as 500, I've added an if else here to check if balance is at least minimum as 500, then I will allow to withdraw. Otherwise, I will say that low balance. You cannot withdraw because the balance is low. So we have three fields and three methods here now. So we have wrapped our data, okay, and the methods in a single unit called class. In a single unit called class. Now let us see that is it encapsulated? Are our data safe or not? So what we do, we go to our test class, which is in another, which is in another file. Okay, and then I create an object for my class. Okay, so I say bank C1 customer one is equal to new bank. Okay, banks C1 is equal to new bank. I told you last time, like what happens at this line. Last topic was object creation. So we have discussed like what exactly happens when we create the object. Okay, so let me show you again. So basically, when you create an object, when you just write this line, bank C1 is equal to new bank, this statement, okay, will actually constructs you the object. This statement will construct the object in the heap. So an object will be constructed. You can imagine an object like this. It is going to have some address here. It's going to have some address. Now, the job of the constructor, which is also called as default constructor, because this is a constructor provided by your compiler. So the job of the default constructor is to fill the default values for uh, the fields like name, account number, and balance. So the constructor gets invoked and it will give the default values for this. So name will be null because if it is of type string, uh, account number will be 0 because it is of type long. So default value will be 0, and balance is of type double. So default value will be 0 0.0. So this is what happens when this statements get executed. So new operator is responsible for allocating the memory dynamically in the heap, and the constructor is responsible for filling the default values and constructing the fields inside that particular object. Then this address will be written and it will be referred by C1. So C1 is a reference here, which will be in the stack and will be referring to this particular object, to this particular object. Then we try filling our actual values using this reference. Okay, I try filling name, account number, and balance. Now I go here and try to fill name of the customer as Rahul. Okay, and then I fill C1 dot account number as 1234, and then I will say C1 dot balance is equal to 1000. So this way I fill actual information, right? So here it goes and give the actual information as name will be assigned as Rahul. Okay, account number has been assigned as 1234 and balance has been assigned as 1000.0. Now I go here and try to check the current balance. So when I just try to print the balance, call the print balance method, it's going to print me the balance for Rahul. So it's going to tell me that Mr. Rahul, you have current balance is so and so. Now if I go and execute the program, I first compile the program Java C test.java. Both of the classes gets compiled. Okay. Now I will execute Java test. Then I can see here that Rahul, your current balance is 1000. Rahul, your current balance is 1000. Even we see like Rahul can deposit, can withdraw from the balance. So this way, I'm trying to initialize the data. So now my question to everyone here is my data safe or am I implementing encapsulation here or is my data protected from others? Yes or no? Are we implementing the encapsulation properly? No. Why do you think? How can you justify that our data is not secured? How can you say here that data is not secured? Anyone can edit the data because of, okay. I haven't used the modifier as public, Monica. You see, nowhere we have used any modifier yet. Okay, so nowhere I have used any modifier as a public. So, but fine, that's correct because you can access the data, right? We have access our data in other file. So, can someone make Rahul balance as 0? Can they make this balance as 0 now? And printing the balance after making it 0 will print you, even let's say he has deposited some amount, C1 dot, he maybe deposited some big amount, let's say 1234.5, something like this. Okay, or I can say 12345.6. Okay, some big amount he has deposited. He got the balance, but someone can access from outside. And when he print the balance, now the balance becomes 0. So now you see, first time when I run the code, it tells that Rahul, your balance is okay, so and so. So share the screen. Now I go here, compile the code. It says that your balance is so and so. So Rahul, your current balance is okay, 13,345 rupees. But once somebody accessed and make the balance 0, so it became 0 0.0. So with this, we can say our data is not safe. Okay, let's try to understand this with some more examples. like what happens when the data is not safe and how we can actually save our data. Okay, so today our major concentration will be on the encapsulation. Slowly we will be stepping into access modifiers and the packages because all has to be dealt together. Okay, then we can complete the definition for the encapsulation. Then I can say what different level of protections I can provide in Java with the help of access modifier, packages, and to implement encapsulation. And a lot of interview questions can be expected from this concept. Okay. Okay. So now let's see with some examples what happened. Uh, so the whatever we have learned so far is data hiding. I told you like fields are basically need to be hidden. You need to make access provides through the public methods. That improves the security, reusability, and the maintainability. A real world example could be like your bank or ATM, where you can withdraw or check the balance using methods, but you cannot directly access the balance and the ATM pin variable, right? They must be secured actually. So nobody should able to access the balance or the ATM pin because these are the most sensitive data which should be secured actually. And we have concluded that our data is not secured. Okay, our data is not secure. So as Monica says, like imagine like we haven't used access modifier as public, but let's say when the data is public, meaning if it is data is available, let's say we keep flower in an open garden like this. Okay, we keep the flower in an open garden like this where it's publicly available. Okay, then what happens is my garden safe now? When I keep this flower in an open garden, is my garden or the flowers are safe? No, right? Okay. Anyone can enter, like donkey, rabbit, or a stranger. They can pluck or they can spoil or they can eat the flowers. So our data is unsafe. Our data is unsafe. Okay. So as Monica said, correct, like if you make your data as public, okay, if you make the data available to other programs, then it is not safe because anybody can access and anybody can change it. Anybody can change. So what I'm going to do is I go back to my program. First thing I will save my data now. Okay, I will make sure my data is safe so that it cannot be accessed from outside. To do that, Java provides you an access modifier called private, which is the most restricted access modifier, which tells that whichever you whatever the members of the class you declared as private, whatever the members of the class. I'm not introducing access modifier concept now. At least I'm going to discuss about public and private today. Okay, moving forward, when we go with packages, we will be talking about the other access modifiers available in Java. But at least to make our to continue our discussion about encapsulation, data hiding, and data protection, I will be introducing one of the access modifier called private. Encapsulation says that your data must be private. Your data must be private. To make this data as private, Java provides a keyword called private. So I will make use of this keyword as private and declare name as private. I'll declare the name as private. I will declare the account number as private, and I will declare the balance as private. I'll declare the balance as private. So we have made the name as private, account number as private, and the balance as private. Now, can I say my data is safe now? Is my data safe? Because I told you that private data members can be accessed within the same class. Now only bank can access name, account number, and balance. No other class can access. Test class cannot access. Okay, our a subscriber class cannot access, or any other class cannot access our name, account number, and balance. Okay, now we made our data as private. We made our data as private. Now, can test class change this balance to 0? Can test class access the balance and change to 0? Yes or no? They cannot, right? They cannot change. So can I say my data is safe now? My data is protected. Now can I say my data is safe and protected? Okay, great. Okay, but do you see any problem here? Do you see any problem in the implementation? Okay, so you all agree that now my data is safe. Methods will not be private, Anirudh. If you're asking like what about methods? Generally, methods will not be private because accessing methods will not be like they cannot change the implementation of the method, right? Calling a method, that's what these methods are meant for, so that it can be used by others. So as per encapsulation rule, methods should be public. Okay, as per the encapsulation rule, method should be public. So we got a keyword called public to make it as a public so that they will be available for others to access. Even you can make method if you don't want method also to be accessed, you can make it as private as well, but mostly methods will be public and data will be private. Okay, mostly methods will be public and data will be private. Now, at least I can say I'm following encapsulation rule. I'm following encapsulation rule here that my data is private so that other class members cannot access my data, and methods are public so that they can access and they can provide the implementation for these methods. Now, instead of making everything private, make class as private. No, class cannot be private. Okay, if I make the class as private, I will be getting an error, Manoj. In Java, classes cannot be private. Okay, I'll be talking more in detail when we go for packages concept, but let me show you if I use the class as private. Remember, if I make the class as private, it means I cannot use this class anywhere then. So what is the use of making a class, Manoj? So that's why classes cannot be private. So I will be getting an error when I compile this bank class, okay? Because class cannot be private. Class cannot be private. The members of the class can be private or public, but class cannot be private. So you see Java compiler will very clearly tells you that private access modifier will not be allowed here. So I will simply compile my bang.java. You can see here, it's telling me modifier private are not allowed here. Modifier private not allowed here. Thank you, Manoj, for having this question, because of these kind of questions, we will be learning a lot of interview concepts. Okay, anyhow, I'll be covering this, but whenever we get a question, it's always good to answer and see what Java compiler tells, okay, and what Java rules talks about it so that you can remember it forever. Okay, so I hope everybody got here that classes cannot be private. So what modifiers are allowed, we will be talking about it. But at least for now, you understood that classes cannot be private. So making class private means you cannot access this class. So the class becomes useless. So that's why classes cannot be private. Okay. But still you can provide some restrictions to the class. We will be talking about it. But now the data is private here. Okay. The data is private. Now, if I can see this now, if I wanted to make this garden as private, what you will do if you wanted to protect this garden or you wanted to protect these flowers, what you will do, guys? Now it is in open garden, okay, so that people can able to access it and can spoil it. But if I have to make this garden as private, what you will be doing? What you will be doing when you have to make this flower as, I mean, the garden as private? You will be making a fence, right? Okay, yeah. Now imagine locking the garden completely. So you made the data as private. You make the data as private. But the moment you make the data as private, do you agree that even you cannot use the garden now? Okay, no one, not even you can access the flowers. Flowers are safe, but useless because no one can see or use them. Clear? Okay, now you see here, only if I make this name, account number and balance as private. Okay, now can my test class can access name, account number and balance to store the Rahul information? Can test class access this name, account number and balance to store the information? Okay, Thank you, Anirudh. Thank you, Manoj. Thank you. Thank you, Shruti. Prasanna says no, thank you. So I cannot use them, right? I cannot use them. So I'll be getting a lot of errors actually. I'll be getting 1, 2, 3, 4 errors here. Okay, saying that data is private, you cannot access. Now I compile my bank class. It gets compiled, no doubt, because nothing wrong with bank class. I compile my bank class. It's perfectly getting compiled. But when I compile the test class now, I will be getting a lot of errors. I'll be getting lot of errors. You see, name has private access in bank. Now you cannot access. Account number has private access in bank. Now you cannot access. Balance has private access in bank. You cannot access. Again, I'm trying to make it 0. I cannot access. So this is okay, but I cannot even fill this information as well. I cannot fill this information as well. So once you make your data as private, then you also cannot access them from other classes. You have to access from the same class. But same class doesn't make sense, right? Because accessing the data in the bank class doesn't make sense. I wanted to access them from test class. Okay, so that I can actually uh, provide the testing of my data. Okay, whether I can able to store it. So what will be the solution now? Should I make this as public or should I make use of any other access modifier? What do you think, guys? So that I can able to store this information at least. So what will be the solution for this? I hope till now everybody is clear. That could be one solution. We can make use of getters and setters methods, which can actually set the name, account number, and balance. And if you wanted to retrieve, you can retrieve it. But one problem with the getters and setters method, Anirudh, that you have to manually call it. You have to manually call it. And whatever the solution Vishnu has given, I can actually, one question to everyone here. Did you remember, like I told you, when we are constructing the object or when we are creating the object, the data getting filled with the default values. Who is filling these default values? Who is filling these default values? Like name as null or account number as 0, balance as 0.0. Nice. It is getting filled by default constructor, right? It is getting filled by default constructor. So we have a default constructor. And who provides this default constructor? Who provides this default constructor? Correct, Vishnu. Compiler provides the default constructor. The compiler provides the default constructor. And as the name says, the job of the default constructor, the job of the default constructor is to fill the default values here. Okay, name as null, account number as 0, balance as 0.0 based on the data type, it will fill default value. So that is the job of the default constructor. Now, can I provide the user defined constructor to fill my actual values? Can I provide my user defined constructor to fill the actual values? That way, at the time of creating the object itself, instead of filling the default values, I can provide my user defined constructor, my own constructor, which can fill actual values now. Correct? So we're going to introduce this constructor now. Let's try to understand constructor, about default constructor, what it does, how it looks like. Then we will see how we can actually provide our own constructor as well. Okay. So now with this, we will be stepping into the constructors concept. Okay. So if data are private, outsiders cannot touch them directly. To conclude, only the class methods can decide how to plant or grow or remove the flowers. This way, data is protected from misuse, but we cannot use it, right? To at least provide the initial data, we will be making use of constructor. So what is constructor? Constructor role is when the garden or the object is created, the constructor plants the initial safe flowers. Okay. Outsiders cannot plant wrong flowers directly because private variables block direct access. So constructor is responsible because he is a member of the same class. Now with the help of constructor, I'm going to provide the values for that particular object. I'm going to provide the values for the particular object. So the job of the constructor is to provide the values to initialize the values, whether it is a default constructor or user-defined constructor. The default constructor responsibility is to provide the default values, and with the help of user-defined constructor, I can provide my actual values. Okay, Anirudh, is your concept, is your things clear, like why we will not be using getters and setters? But based on the requirement, we may also have getters and setters method, because constructor will be only get called at the time of creating an object. But later, if you want to get and set the data, then I can still make use of getters and setters method as well. Okay, we may have some getters and setters method as well. Okay, now let's get into and try to understand what is constructor in Java. So basically, objects are constructed. You cannot make a new object without invoking a constructor or without calling a constructor, right? So you know that if you have to make an object, you cannot make an object without calling the constructor. So how do we invoke the constructor? We used to say new bank. Okay, this is my constructor. I told you the class name followed by the parenthesis is a constructor, because generally constructor will have the same name as a class name. Okay, constructor will have a same name as a class name. So you cannot make an object without calling the constructor. So you cannot make any object without calling the constructor. In fact, you cannot make a new object without invoking not just the constructor of the object actual class type, but also the constructor of each of its superclass. So this, please do remember this statement. You may need this statement for answering few of my question. Okay. Now, constructor is a special type of method that is used to initialize the objects. So basically, what is constructor? It's a special type of method. Okay, whether it is default or user defined, special type of method. Its behavior is same like method. The only thing is, it basically used for initializing the object. It's basically used for the initializing the object. It constructs the values and provide the data for the object, because the data is private. That is why it is called as constructor. That is why it is known as constructor. Now, let us talk a little bit about default constructors now. Okay, let us talk about default constructor. Every class must have a constructor, but just because a class must have doesn't mean that programmer has to provide it, because the compiler will provide the default constructor. Now my question is, does this class has a constructor now? Let's say if I have a class called bike. Okay, does this class has a constructor? Does this class has a constructor? Yes, it has a constructor. Even physically it is not present. It doesn't look physically here. Okay, but logically, okay, the compiler will generate a default constructor, and that's what we are talking about, right? And the job of the default constructor is to fill the default values. How it looks like? It look like this. If you look at this diagram, you can see here, if you have a class called bike, okay, in a file called bike.java, when you give this to a compiler, after compiling, you can see that a constructor is getting added. This is something additional brackets, but forget about it. So you can see here that a constructor is getting provided here. So whatever the class, even in the bank class, it's providing, even though you don't have a constructor, the default constructor is getting provided like this. The default constructor will be provided like this. The name of the constructor will be bank, and it will be doing some default initializations. But this is how the constructor will implicitly provided by the compiler, even if you don't provide it. Can we add our own parameters in the compiler generated constructors brackets? No, that is called user defined constructor. Then when you provide the arguments here, then it becomes user defined. For default constructor, you cannot change because it is generated by the compiler. You have no access to the default constructor, but you can have your own user defined constructor. Right? That's why I told you there are two ways you can make use of constructor. The default constructor, when you don't want to initialize your values, so you can make use of default constructor. You will use user defined constructor when you have to give actual values. So basically a no argument constructor is not necessarily the default, but generally a default constructor will be a no argument constructor. Basically it will be a no argument constructor. Constructor and a method difference is constructor is to construct the object as the name says, and its main responsibility is to initialize the data members of the class. But methods are any kind of function which actually implement some behavior or some logic. Okay, so both are different. And one more major difference will be constructor name will be same as the class name, whereas method can have any name. And final difference will be constructor will have implicit return type, but methods must have a return type, right? If you look at here now, print balance is a method. Okay, because its name is not same as a class name and it has a return type and it has its own implementation. And deposit is a method which takes argument, which has a return type, and it has its own implementation. So these are the methods, Manoj. Whereas constructor is a special method basically. It's also kind of method because it has similar features like it will have a name, it will take some arguments, it will have some implementation. So it looks like a method, but it's a special method because its responsibility is to fill the values. Its responsibility is to fill the values here now, like name, account number, and the balance. Clear, Manoj? Anyhow, we have a slide where we talk about the constructor and method differences, but I hope this helps you to understand the differences between methods and constructor. But when we make it, you get some more clarity about it. Okay, now we have some good exercises which will also help you to understand the difference between constructor and a method. Now, let's say, for example, if I provide this class test, what will be my compiler generated code will look like? Does compiler create a constructor for me? Yes or no? Does compiler generates the constructor for me? Yes, a default constructor will be generated. How it will be, what will be the name of the constructor? What will be the name of the constructor? Test. Okay, nice. What will be the access modifier for the default constructor? What will be the access modifier for the default constructor? Same as class. So class is default. Class is default. So access modifier will also be default. Okay. And do we have any statement inside the constructor, the default constructor? Do compiler provide any statement inside the constructor? Actually, yes. Okay, that's what I ask you to remember that statement. I told you the constructor will not only gets called the constructor of the present class. I told you it will call the constructor of the parent class also. Okay, it will call the constructor of the parent class. Anyhow, we will talk about this child parent relation in inheritance. But for now, you need to at least have this basic understanding. Who is the parent class for this test class? Who is the parent class for this test class? Itself? No. Itself cannot be parent, right? Who is the parent class for this test class? When you say any class as parent class, when you're inheriting that class, right? Okay. So you know that's nice, Anirudh. So basically, there is a class called object. There is a class called object, which is called as universal parent class. It's implicitly inherited. Even though you're not using extends keyword here for inheriting, it will be implicitly inherited. Okay, it will be implicitly inherited. So what it will do is the compiler generated code will be adding that statement to call the parent class constructor. To invoke that parent class constructor, we got a special keyword called super. So your compiler generated code will look like this. Even though we are not talking about inheritance, but it is important to know now because in constructor, the very first line will be calling to the parent class constructor. So remember, this super is not calling a test constructor. It is calling the object class constructor actually. Okay, this will be little additional, but I hope you can take it because here, as I told you, the object is a universal superclass. It's implicitly getting inherited. So this is how the compiler generated code looks like. Clear for all? So access modifier is same as the class. Name of the constructor is same as the class. No argument constructor because it's a default constructor. And inside that constructor, we'll have a super call, which is calling to the parent class constructor. Any constructor, okay, will first call the parent class constructor. Anyhow, you get more clarity when we go for inheritance about the super keyword. But for now, just remember that every constructor, the first line will be a super keyword, whether you add it or it gets implicitly added. So this is how the compiler generated code will look like. Now look at this class and tell me how the compiler generated code will look like now. What is the only change you will have compared to previous example? What is the only change you have? What is the only change you will have here? The access modifier, correct. Okay, as the class is public, the constructor will also have public access modifier. Other things are same. The other things are same. Okay, is this clear for everyone? Just type Y so that I can go for next example. Okay, thank you, Srikar. A quick confirmation with everyone. That's nice. Thank you. We have other questions as well. Thank you. Thank you. Great. Now look at this code and tell me, will the, what is this actually? Class test, is it a default constructor or user defined constructor? Yeah, Pranay, I will explain about super keyword. Okay. There are few more questions. Let me conclude that and then get back to you and explain you the super keyword in short. But in detail, we will be discussing when we go for inheritance concept. Okay. Now, my question to everyone here, is it a default constructor or user defined constructor? Okay. Let's see with others as well, whether it is default constructor or user defined constructor. So Manoj also thinks it's a user defined constructor. Samata thinks is a user defined constructor. Okay, because we are providing it. Correct. We are providing. But did you remember one rule I told you? Okay, one rule I told you, that constructor will not have return type. So it is not a constructor basically. It's a method. That's what when Manoj asked the question, difference between method and a constructor. That's nice, Monica. This is not a constructor at all. Okay, remember the main difference between a constructor and a method is the return type. Okay, so constructor will not have explicit return type. It will have implicit return type. But method name can be same as class name. Maybe not a good practice, but can be. There is no restriction like that. Method cannot have the same name as class name. What differentiate between constructor and a method is a return type. Manoj, your question got answered now. This is the main difference between a method and a constructor. That constructor will not have explicit return type. Okay, it will have implicit return type. So you should not provide return type for the constructor. No void, no int, no string, no float, nothing, no return type for a constructor. So this is not a constructor. Now, as it is not a constructor, will a default constructor will be created, Monica, by the compiler, that it is not a constructor now? A quick confirmation, guys. Are you all clear that it's not a constructor? Now, will compiler will generate the default constructor? Yes or no? Will the compiler generate the default constructor? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. It will keep the method as it is, but a default constructor will be generated. So here you see, this is a constructor, it's a method. So both are different. Okay. Both are different. What is the difference between them? The return type. Constructor will not have return type, but it will have return type. But remember, if the moment I provide the user defined constructor, the compiler will not provide the constructor. The compiler will not provide the constructor. Okay. But anyhow, it's not a constructor. So that's why the compiler has to provide the default constructor because it is a method. So method will keep as it is, but a default constructor will be provided. Now, let's see if we can answer a few more questions. Now tell me, is it a constructor? Is this a constructor? Okay. User defined or default? User defined or default? Okay, user defined. And it's no argument or one argument constructor. User defined can be anything, right? It can be no argument, one argument, or anything. Now the question is, does the compiler provide the constructor for us? Okay, because I told you, the moment we provide the constructor, the compiler will not provide the constructor. Okay, what is the only thing compiler will add now? What is the only thing compiler will add here? What is the only change you will find in this code? Super keyword. Very nice. Okay, because I told you, if you don't write the super keyword, the super keyword will always be added as a very first line in the constructor, whether it is user defined or predefined. I mean default one. Okay, super keyword will be definitely added because it has to call the parent class object first. Okay, parent class object first. So this is how the constructor. You see, there is no default constructor is getting created because the moment I provide my own constructor, the compiler will not provide the default constructor. The compiler will not provide the default constructor. Last question. Let's say if I have this code, is it a default constructor or user defined constructor? Is it a default constructor or user defined? It's a user defined. I am providing it now. It's a no argument, but it's a user defined constructor. Okay. Now, what is a change the compiler generated code will look like? What is a change the compiler generated code will look like? Okay. It will be exactly same, no change. Okay. So with this, very nice. Okay. So with this, can we conclude that you got some understanding about the constructor now? Okay, so let's have few quick questions on constructor before we go for some more definitions. We'll quickly see some of the question asked in companies. So in Oracle, there was a question. Let's say we have int x and string y, and we will be saying public static void main demo d is equal to new demo system dot out dot println d dot x and d dot y. So what gets printed? Yes, I'm explaining the super keyword as well. Pranay also raised the same question, but now I wanted to see what will be the output for this. Okay. Do we have a constructor here? Do we have a constructor provided? User defined constructor? No, right? So who is initializing those values then? Zero and null. Who is initializing those values? Nice. Everybody says zero and null as an answer. So let's see options. Okay, zero null, compiler error, or null zero. Default constructor is providing. Okay, so you see, we don't have any constructor here, right? We don't have any constructor here. So the correct answer is zero and null. Correct. Okay, not zero and zero, Pranay, because string is an object, so it will be having a value called null. So the default value for string will be null, and for integers it will be zero. So the correct answer is zero and null. Okay, now another question from TCS. Let's say we have class A, void A, system.out.println, method A, okay, and public static void main, new A. What will be the output for this? Previous one, you see, if you look at the previous example, meantime others can answer. There is no constructor we have provided here. Did I provide any constructor here inside this demo? No. So it's a default constructor, right? The moment we provide the constructor, then it's called user defined constructor. You don't see any constructor inside this class. So I'm actually calling the constructor, but it is the default constructor. Okay, getting called, and it will fill the default values. Okay, now let's see. Okay, so my question is, do we get error? First of all, do we get error for this program? Yes or no? Do we get error for this program? Yes or no? Okay, what will be the error? If I compile and execute, what will be the error for this program? Okay, people still thinking. Okay, let me show the options for you all. Options are method A gets printed, compilation fails, execution executes with no output, and option D is exception will be thrown at runtime. What do you think? Which option will be correct? Okay, Manoj thinks option C is correct. Vishnu, Ankita, what about others? Yashwant thinks method A will be printed. Srikar, okay, nice. Basically, there is nothing wrong. First of all, it's a constructor or a method? It's a constructor or a method? It's a method, right? Because we have a return type. So once we have a method, does the compiler provide the default constructor? Does the compiler provide the default constructor? Yes. Yes, right. The compiler will provide the default constructor. I'm invoking the default constructor, not a method. You see, methods will not be invoked like this with new operator. Along with new operator, even though I'm using A here, but I'm not calling the method. I'm calling the constructor, which is default. And it does not do anything, so there will be no output for this program. So method is not getting executed. So option A is wrong. There is nothing wrong with this program, so no compilation or no runtime error. So the option C is correct. So it will execute, okay, with no. Clear for all? Is this clear for all that it will execute with no output? Let's see one question from Microsoft. Okay. Now tell me, is it a user-defined constructor or default constructor? Is it a user-defined constructor or default constructor? User-defined. Okay, because I'm providing, remember. When we write explicitly, it's called user-defined. When we don't write, it's predefined. Now, what will be the output? Options are, will it print nothing? Will it print hello MS, hello Microsoft, or compilation fail, or none of this? What do you think? Okay, I get mixed answers. Some of you think it prints nothing, or some of you thinks, okay. Actually, the only trick here is constructor can be private. Can I make the constructor as private? Yes or no? Can I make the constructor as private? Actually, yes. I can make it as private, public, or anything. Okay. But if I make this as private, can I use from other classes? Just now we have learned, right? Private data can be used in same class. Can I use from other class? No, I cannot. So when I call the constructor, will I get compilation error now? When I call the constructor, will I get a compilation error? Yes or no? No. Why you will not get compilation error here, even though the constructor is private? Because we are in the same class. Okay. This main method is in the same class. If main method is in a different class, will I get error? If main method is in a different class, will I get error? Yes. So the output is hello MS because we are in the same class. So one thing you have learned that constructors can also be private. You can access from same class, but not from other classes. Okay. So we will be learning one special thing. Generally been asking big because Microsoft will not ask simple questions, right? So basically it will be checking you that what kind of scenarios the constructors can be private. So there's a special concept called singleton classes. Moving forward, we will learn as per the placements perspective. We will learn what is the use of singleton classes, what are factory methods, and how we make use out of it. That kind of questions you will be getting in these big companies and all. Okay, so this is all from different companies. One question from Infosys as well. Final question. Now tell me what gets printed. Output. It prints parameter 0. It prints only 0. The compilation fails, or none of this, or no output. Okay. Actually, this is fine. The correct answer is option C. It fails compilation error. Okay. Why? Because which constructor I'm calling? Which constructor I'm calling? A default or a no argument constructor. But which constructor I have here? Which constructor I have? One parameter. Okay. So once you have one parameter, this is a very common mistake. Okay. Generally, if you don't have any constructor, then this is legal. If you don't have any constructor, then this is legal. But the moment you provide your own constructor, you know that default constructor will not be provided. So that's why you will be getting an error. Okay. You will be getting an error because you're trying to call the default constructor, which is not present in your class, neither by you nor by compiler has provided. You have a constructor, no doubt, user defined constructor, but it is one parameter. So if you have to make this program work, you have to pass one parameter. So the correct answer is it will give compilation fail. Clear for all? I hope with these examples, can I say the constructors concepts gets cleared along with encapsulation? The constructor concept is clear for all. A quick yes, so that we will conclude. And we'll quickly take the attendance. And there was a question about super keyword. Those who have a question, please stay back. In 5 minutes, I will quickly explain about super keyword. And about other access modifiers and packages, we will be talking about in the next session. What does a new keyword do in main method? The new keyword is responsible for creating the object Manoj at runtime. Same like malloc, realloc, calloc functions in C language for dynamic memory allocation. New is an operator in Java for dynamic memory allocation. So it's allocating me the memory for an object. Restarting learning from the scratch, because now you will be majorly learning for placements or certification perspective. So your way of learning will be very different because you will not be learning for only JNTO here, right? So a long way to go, and Java is one of the most preferred language, especially to cracking with the 3-tier colleges kind of thing. Give you a lot of opportunities basically. Okay. No, you're not late at all. Okay. You're not late at all learning from here. If you just give 3-4 months sincerely, you can master this language along with advanced concepts like servlet, JSP, Spring, and you can start your development as well as your coding skills. You can improve. That's perfect, actually. Okay. That's great. Of course, they go very depth in Java actually. Okay, because in the panelists now there will be a lot of people who has a lot of depth knowledge in Java. So mostly expected like a lot of depth questions. So the question from Anirudh is like, suppose I wanted to create a bank object, I can do it in 2 steps. I can say bank C1, and then I can say C1 is equal to new bank, right? You can write this in 2 steps. So actually this is the constructing the object. This is just a reference and we are assigning that to the reference. I can write in one line basically, but you can write in 2 steps. That is what I've understood from your question. And if you have to call the methods, you can call using this object. You can say C1 dot print balance or C1 dot deposit or C1 dot withdraw. You can do this way. So this is calling the method and this is calling the constructor. This, hope that was a question from you. And about the super keyword, I told you whenever you're writing class, any class, whether class test or class bank or whatever, it will be implicitly inherited. Okay, it will be simply inherited by the object class. So there's a class called object, which is a universal superclass. It is universal superclass, universal parent class or superclass. So whenever the constructor we provide, whenever the constructor getting added explicitly or implicitly, okay, the compiler will add a super keyword to it. So meaning it is calling the constructor of the object class actually. Okay, because the rule is whenever an object is constructed, first it has to construct the parent class object, then the child class object. So that's why every time it will call the parent class constructor. So you will have this better understanding when you go for inheritance concept. For now, just remember that the super keyword will be added by default by constructor, and it will be a very first line in your constructor, whether it is default constructor or user defined constructor. We're going to discuss a very important concept called packages. Okay. I guess there will be a lot of confusion regarding packages. So we need to discuss on Saturday. Hope like we'll all see on, I mean, we'll all meet on Saturday and we'll discuss about it. Okay. So today we just started encapsulation concept. We introduced constructor as well. Still, we have to go a long way about access modifiers and packages. That will cover lot of interview questions, and we will be covering our complete encapsulations. Okay. With this, I'll take a leave for the day. Good night, everyone.